Hi, this is Margo. This is Sunday, September the 15th, 2019. And I know it's been a while since I've done a show, and it's because I was caring for my friend who was on hospice and was passing away and was in the dying process, and he was staying with me, and I provided 24/7 care for him, and he passed on Thursday morning. And I'm not feeling well, but I want to get back to reporting. I miss it. You can hear my voice. I've been exposed to so many toxic environments in the last month and a half or so. It's just really taken a toll on me. But in other ways, I'm doing okay physically. I'm stronger physically than I've been in years with my muscles. I mean, tending to him, I used muscles I haven't used in years, with just back and forth and tending and doing things and all of this. And I would not have done it any other way. I'm glad I was able to provide that for him. And I'm telling you, dying is hard. And it's not like you're just going to lay down and go to sleep. It doesn't work that way. Even with lots of health problems, it does not work that way. So don't let anyone fool you and think that it's going to be easy to go when it's not, and God chooses the time. And I don't believe in suicide, and I know that a lot of people do believe in assisted suicide, especially for the terminally ill. I have a different opinion on that, and I'm not going to get into arguing with people about it, but everybody has their own opinion, and I'm not going to convince anyone either way, and so that's not the purpose of this show anyway. So I will be talking more about my experience in the last few weeks, and talking about spiritual things that happen and spiritual aspects of the dying process, because it is a birth into the other reality, and so you have to die to this reality, and there's a whole preparation period that goes along with it. And I was able to share in that with my friend, and so I have a whole different perspective now, and I will be sharing it, and I will be outspoken about it. But I want to get back to my reporting here on the Arctic sea ice and the methane and what I see going on with the climate. So let's get going. I have not done an update since August the 26th, so I'm going to cover information since then as best that I can. I was able to record most of the data from day to day. I think I missed one day that I didn't record the climate reanalyzer data. And on my Subscribestar page, I've been able to keep up with the methane data, just recording silent movies. They were short. They were silent movies that I put up for my members. So all of that data is recorded and archived over there. And so I'd like to thank my Subscribestar members for hanging with me, and I actually picked up a couple of new members in the last month or so. So I'd like to welcome them, and for $5 a month you can support my work on Subscribestar, because my YouTube channel is not monetized. It will probably never be monetized, and so this is my work. This is what I do. And so I will be returning to full-time reporting as soon as possible, as soon as I get my friend's estate kind of in order and squared away. But I'm returning on a part-time basis now, and then once I get his estate underway and squared away and I'm not so toxified all the time, I will return to full-time reporting. And I'd like to give a big shout out and a thank you to Robin Westenra in New Zealand. His blog is Seymour Rocks at blogspot.com or .blogspot.com, and his YouTube channel is Seymour Rocks 97, I think. And he has kept up with the reporting on the sea ice and the methane and the climate, and has done an excellent job along with all of his world news and world reporting. And I know that Robin is not feeling well, and a lot of us are not feeling well, and we're feeling the effects of what's coming down physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and it's taking a toll on every single one of us, and we're all going down, and it's not long before before we're not going to be able to do this any longer, whether it's because the internet is gone or world events have taken place and we're not able to get on and do reporting, or the censorship, or physically we're not able to do it because we're not feeling well, or it's a whole host of things, or we're having to take care of other business like I was doing in the last month or so. And so we have to take advantage of these days, these moments, these minutes that we have, and share with people and come together and still be our community that we are, and support one another and love one another and respect one another. And so I'm thanking Robin for his stellar job of continuing to doing the reporting even though he's not feeling well, and I'm hoping to do a few more shows with him. I'm gonna try some different platforms. I don't like TalkShoe because something weird always happens over there, and it's a huge pain in the ass. And we did a show. I can't even remember when we did it, whether it was June or July. I think it was July, on the sea ice, and that was the last show we did together. And we had awful problems with getting that set up and going. And so I'm going to try a couple of different platforms with him, and if we're able to, and if he's up to it, we are going to do some more reports together. So on that note, I have a slideshow prepared for you. I have Climate Reanalyzer. This is sea ice and snow cover. This is from today, the 15th, and I'm going to go back through these pictures and we'll see where we came from August 26th. So I'm just going to click one at a time. So this is where it is today, and we can see, so it shows extent. Also, the darker areas is less concentrated, all the way down to blue is 0 concentration, and up to the white is full concentration. So here it is from yesterday, the 14th, the 13th, 12th, 11th, and you can see a demarcation in the concentration. Here's the 10th, here's the 9th, here's the 8th, and I missed the 7th. That was a busy day for me. So here it is from the 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, August 31st. We can see it had a lot of changes going on. I remember there was a storm or an Arctic cyclone that took place, I think it was on August the 23rd, tore up the sea ice. And so here's the 29th. Here's after effects of that storm. It started in the Canadian archipelago up here, and then it moved across, and it just tore up the sea ice. Here's the 28th. We're seeing the aftermath of that. Here's the 26th. So here it is from the 26th. We can see where it was very thin. That was where the storm was coming across and churning. Here's the 27th. It's still churning up here to the north of the North Pole, and the 28th, and so forth. So we'll go back through and see. So I know that Paul Beckwith has done some stuff on the refreezing of the sea ice, and Sam Curran has done some stuff too, and nobody can agree on, you know, how it's going to refreeze or whatever. And the reason they can't is because the models don't work anymore, because we're really in no man's land with this melt. Now look how thin it is over here, just north of the Canadian area. The models don't work anymore. We are in no man's land, and we're living in a time with this weird technology that's going on. We are experiencing lots of geoengineering and chemtrailing. You can use whatever words you want. A lot of the climate scientists don't want to recognize that. They call it, the aerosol masking effect, which is chemtrails. Let's just call it what it is. And geoengineering, and it's been going on for decades. And Dane Wigington has done a stellar job of talking about all of this. And, hats off to Dane Wigington. And there's so much more in the mix besides the geoengineering, like the beaming. I call it the beaming, and Dane Wigington has reported on that too with HARP and the isostatic. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what they're called, but it's the heaters, the radar, infrared heaters and stuff, and it's beaming, and we're being beamed by microwaves from space, and microwaves heat everything up, and we can see evidence of that in NASA Worldview. And I don't talk about that a lot on YouTube because I don't want to come under lots of attack, and I don't want my channel taken down. I do talk about it on Subscribestar for my members and show it in detail when I'm doing my full reporting. And it's affecting the whole planet, and it's heating up from the inside out, and magma is rising and coming up closer and closer to the surface. And the climate scientists don't consider that. They don't consider the earthquakes. They don't consider all kinds of stuff. So I look at everything from a holistic approach and know that we have to consider everything. We can't just consider one thing or another, because it doesn't work. And that's why the models don't work anymore, because they're based on one or two things, not on the holistic approach. And so, given all of that, there might be a little bit of refreeze coming back, but it's going to be very thin. And if we have another storm, which I anticipate we will, we're in the beginning of the cyclone season up here, it'll tear all that sea ice up. So, to sit around and argue about how the extent is just is nonsense, and I'm not going to argue about it. And to argue about the blue ocean event and when that's going to happen, I'm not going to argue about that. I'm not going to make any predictions, because we're in huge trouble whether we have a blue ocean event this year, next year, the year after. It doesn't matter when that happens. We're in huge trouble, and I don't expect us to be around next year, frankly. With the way everything's coming down, I don't expect it. So, let's continue with our slideshow. Here is the Navy sea ice thickness from today, from September the 15th. And that's for today's date. It was red. If you want to know what these numbers are, it was red on September the 14th. And it was their model is a projection out to the 15th. And we can see, if we want to blow this up a little bit, we can see it's very thin, especially near the North Pole, where these two lines intersect is at 90 degrees north latitude, and that's the North Pole. We have white, which is no ice at all. I'm sorry, I was trying to show that. White is no ice, and up to like half a meter, maybe 0.75 meters. And then when you get into the blue, the dark purple and the blue, you're getting into about 1 to 1.25 meters. So most of the sea ice is under 1.5 meters thick. And the aqua is about 2 meters thick. And there's just a little tiny bit here that's in the red zone, which is a little bit thicker, which is yellow is like 3.5 to the red. Orangey is 4 meters, which is right up here at this northern edge of Greenland. We can see in the tributaries there's very little refreeze so far going on. It's quite thin. We can see that Svalbard is still pretty much ice-free. The western side of Greenland is ice-free. The eastern side of Greenland is almost completely ice-free. We can see this extent is pretty close in. There's no refreeze around the edges, around the edges of the Arctic for Canada, Alaska, or Russia, or Norway, or these Sweden, Norway, Sweden, Finland, all of that. Novaya Zemlya, there's no refreeze there yet. So that's where they're at, right there. And it's very thin, and there's areas where when we look at NASA Worldview, you're going to be shocked to see the sea ice where there's like no ice. You can see the water through right almost at the North Pole. So the condition of the ice is very sad. It's sick ice. It's not healthy ice. And so when they talk about the extent being better than 2012, it doesn't mean anything, because they measure anything that's a frozen little pond scum even as part of extent, where you could just run your finger through it and it would come off. If it's a little bit frozen, they count that as extent. But in 2012, the sea ice was much healthier. What was there was a lot thicker, and it was a lot healthier, and so that's why we were able to have the sea ice that didn't go away. We didn't have a blue ocean event before now, because the sea ice from 2012 was much healthier. But given the extent was so far down this summer, and it's so thin, it's not going to be good. So this is the GIF, the Navy GIF for, it's a 30-day animation. It goes back 3 weeks and projects forward 1 week. So I'm going to stop it. This is what they anticipate it to be a week from now, which is the 22nd. So it might be getting just a little bit thicker than where it is right now. And we're seeing a little bit of refreeze going back out. Here's today. So if we go forward, it's still like moving around. It's not really going back out much with the extent. And the purple is getting a little bit darker, so but it's still white right next to the North Pole. So there's that. Let's go forward with what I have for you. Here is, I made this movie today from NASA Worldview. This is from the last 3 weeks since I reported, so that you can see what's been going on up there with the ice. So we'll let this run through. This is from August the 24th to September the 13th. And the more blue it is, the less concentration it is. So we can see the change day by day in this. Did I stop it? Yes. Let me go back. So here it is on the 24th. We'll just go day by day. A little bit slower. So here's the aftermath after that cyclone. See how much thinner it was up here north of the North Pole. And here's the 31st. Here's the 1st. We're seeing a lot thinner, more blue coming all the way across here. And just all the way is more blue. So meaning a lot thinner. And we're seeing this whole area just thin, and then this white area is the thickest. So even this area around the North Pole is quite thin, not healthy ice at all. And here's the 13th. And it takes them a couple of days to process all their data to get this sea ice layer up on NASA Worldview. So this is the latest. It goes to the 13th. Because today's the 15th. So here's where it is today. And we can see it's quite thin coming up from Greenland up here north of the North Pole. This hole is where the sun is going down. They're going into their fall and winter, and so this is the area that is not visible now that the sun is going down. But this other area is still getting sunlight. So we're seeing just a little bit of refreeze, a little bit of tiny blue, just in these little nooks and crannies on the shores around the Arctic. The Baffin Bay is still clear. Hudson Bay is still pretty clear. The Beaufort Sea is still clear. So that's where we're at with that, and I think that's my slideshow. So there's that. Now we're going to move to methane, and here we have Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Services. Their latest data, they only have 1 day's worth of data up from Wednesday, September 11th. So this is already 4 days old. And let me go. I wanted the Arctic view. I'm going to pause this recording while I reload this movie. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So this is where, so the data is from Wednesday the 11th, and then the forecast runs through today, Sunday the 15th. So this is where it left off on Tuesday. Here's the color chart. The dark brown, I call it black sometimes, is from 2160 to 10,000 parts per billion. So it can be anywhere within that range. And this, the one before that is 2140 to 2160 and so forth. This chartreuse color, yellow, chartreuse yellow, is 2,000 parts per billion. It's still quite high. So we can see over the Arctic we have high methane releases. This is surface level, and the Arctic view. So we have at the surface releases of methane coming up. This is where there's no sea ice, as you can see, and even through the sea ice it was coming up about at this green about at 1940 parts per billion and higher. And so we'll just go ahead and run this and you can see what's going on. Now what I've been noticing when I was recording the silent movies, just documenting the data, was we didn't have a blowout up here in the East Siberia ice shelf, which I know we were all expecting this year. We had high methane releases coming up to the shore, but we didn't have large methane releases into the yellows and reds and the dark browns like we've had before. And we had higher releases in the winter time up here. I think back in February and March, Robin and I were reporting on this, showing these high releases through the sea ice, and it was incredible. So we didn't see that, but what we have seen recently is this huge release coming up out of the Norway, Finland, Sweden, and northwest Russia area, and in the Norwegian Sea and the Laptev Sea. I mean, not the Laptev, the Barents Sea. Laptev is up here. I have to reorient myself since I haven't reported in so long. See these high releases? This is in the forecast period, but look, here's Svalbard, and I don't know how the seed vault did this year. It was melted up there, and it was, I didn't see reports on that. Iceland is releasing methane. Look at this. Watch here where my pointer is as we go through the forecast period. See, right here on this corner, and on this northwest corner there were high releases earlier this summer. But this is disturbing, and so we're seeing high releases coming up here, and earlier we were seeing high releases to the east of Novaya Zemlya and the Yamal Peninsula, but here Russia, and it's a whole thing. We're still seeing high releases in Alaska, high releases in Canada, and so on. So I'll let this run through. So if we look at the global view, or the North American, wait, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to get the North Pole view. Here's North America, and it's got high releases, but not like China and India. If we look at the North Pole view, this gives us the northern hemisphere, and high releases still in China and northern India, Europe, and so on and so forth. And then if we go to the global view, here's globally, and we've been seeing releases in the Antarctic around the edges of the sea ice and the edges of Antarctica itself, and so there's that. And if we look at 500 HPA, that's about halfway up in the atmosphere. That's what it looks like. Very high levels over China and Asia and India, and moving on over into Saudi Arabia, and then over the northern hemisphere in different parts. I've seen it worse though. Here it is, total column. Total column is definitely worse every time I look at it. And the last time I showed total column on August 26th, if you go back to that video and look at it, we didn't have all these blacks and reds coming across. It was pretty much limited to China and India. But now we're seeing it move over the Pacific and over Saudi Arabia and Africa, and a lot of Africa, and also coming up in Russia, and over here in the Pacific, and down here in Indonesia, and so on. So total column is not good at all. So let's leave this as a backdrop now. And now let's look at the NOAA data. I've been recording this every week. I haven't presented it because I was not able to do the weekly shows. My friend was just too ill the last few weeks for me to do the weekly show, and it was really the 24/7 care. It was grueling for me, but I did record the data. But I'm not going to present all of that today. I might do a separate video just showing that. But the data from yesterday, they have two satellites, the MEDOP 1 and MEDOP 2, that go around the Earth and take readings twice a day in the AM and PM. And so we have 4 readings every day from these satellites from like 100 different levels. I've been recording the 477 millibar reading. When you go to picture here, it says 469. But if you click on the small GIF on the NOAA website, it's the 477 reading. So here it is from yesterday in the morning, Met 1, and the mean was 1896. These are parts per billion. We can see this fuchsia color, very high readings across much of the northern hemisphere and some of the southern hemisphere, parts of Antarctica as well. The range was 1465 to 2326. So this gives us an idea of some of those higher readings that we saw on cams with the oranges and the reds and the dark browns as to what they really were. Here it is from the afternoon. The mean was 1891. Here's the Met-2 satellite from the morning, and I don't see how they can even get an accurate reading with this much missing data. See all the white spots? And the gray is no data as well. So the majority is missing, but they say that the mean is 1873, and the range was from 1450 to 2344. This was in the morning yesterday. And here's the afternoon reading from yesterday. And again, so much missing data, I don't know how you can get an accurate reading, but they say it's 1863. So I took those numbers and plugged them into my spreadsheet. So here it is for this week. And I added up those numbers and then divided them by 4, and the average number I came up with for the 4 readings for the 477 millibars was 1880.75 parts per billion, and that was down 1.75 parts per billion from last week. So, on the 24th, which I included on my August 26th update, methane was up 3.25 parts per billion. Here it was here. Then the next week, it went down 1 parts per billion. And then the next week, on the 7th, it went up 0.25 parts per billion, and now it's gone down 1.75 parts per billion. So here's where we're at with this chart, and I started tracking this with Dave, aka Nostradamus, back on March the 1st, and then we kind of started doing our own reporting a while back, and so I've just been tracking the 477 millibar reading consistently. That's the only one I've been tracking, and since March the 1st, it's still an increase of 23.50 parts per billion. Here it is. So it's still an increase. And the 477 millibar reading is about 20,000 feet up from the surface, or 6,096 meters. And it's a reading that a lot of climate scientists use. It's a little over halfway up in the atmosphere. So there's that. And I've only been doing this season, so I don't have data from last year to go back to and look at. So you know, don't even ask. So we've got what we've got. Okay, now let's continue this report. We've got, I thought we'd just do a little climate update here. Here it is, Climate Reanalyzer from today. Here are the maximum readings and temperatures from today. We can see that the North Pole is starting to cool off a little bit, but there are large areas in the Arctic that are still above zero. And Greenland is definitely getting cooler. Here's the 2-meter temperature anomaly map from today. Large areas of the Arctic are above above what it normally would be. Northern Greenland is above, and this whole area in the Arctic and Siberia and so forth. Lots of Canada is above, lots of United States is above, and so forth. Here's the global map, and the Antarctic is way above. So in the world, it's 0.3 degrees Celsius higher than normal. For the northern hemisphere, it's 0.8 degrees higher than normal. The Arctic is 1.8 degrees higher than normal. Now, I do want to show you, though, the Antarctic, because I'm going to show you the sea ice down there. Now, right now, this area here in southern Antarctica is in the red and the pinky white zone, 20 to 30 degrees higher than normal. This is the Ross ice shelf area. Now, it was over here. And Robin has done some stellar work reporting on ozone, and I'd like to thank him for including my videos that I did from last year on ozone. I will be continuing reporting on ozone because we're in big trouble. We're not going to talk about it today. Here's precipitation for today. We can see it's raining in a lot of the Arctic today, and we got some snow over here. Let's look at the jet stream. We still have a divided schizophrenic jet stream going on for the whole world. Oh, I forgot to show the precipitation for the whole world. It's, and, you know, it's hard for me to report on all the storms and things, but, I'll do what I can. Here's the sea ice and snow cover. So the extent has not really come back that much. Sea surface temperature. And here's the sea surface temperature anomaly, and this is what I go by. And this is from yesterday, the 14th, and we can see that most of the sea surface temperature that's around the edge of the sea ice, where it's white is where the sea ice is, that most of the sea surface temperature is above normal. See the brown and the red and the pinkish white. And so with it being that warm, it's going to be difficult for it to have any kind of a refreeze. And look at how high it is in the Baffin Bay here, and so on and so forth. And also look at the Pacific. The Pacific is awful. Let's just click around. See this coastline of Siberia, a lot of that's in the red, and it's red or brown. Almost all the coastline of Siberia and Russia. Here's the Pacific. Look at how red and brown that is. Look at Alaska. And with it warm like that, there's more carbon dioxide in the ocean. So, and it's releasing more methane. Look at it, red off the coast of North America there. So there's that. Now let's go to, this is the National Sea Ice Snow and Sea Ice Data Center. I pulled up the sea ice index for the daily, and this correlates with what we saw from NASA Worldview. Concentration. Here's their chart for the extent, and I already talked about that. And even though, see, it was lower than 2012 until about the 1st of August, and then it went above the dip for this dotted line was where 2012 was for extent back in September. It's still lower than all the other years. And extent, if it's pond scum, it's not going to perform the functions that it needs to perform as good sea ice if it's not thick. So by then reporting and saying, oh, the extent is so good and this and that, it's really misrepresentation, because it's not good ice, it's not healthy ice. Here's the Greenland ice sheet today, and we can see it's still melting. We've got surface melt. We can see the salmon color in this picture, and here's the surface melt for this year, and we can see that most of Greenland had some surface melt this year. Here's the Greenland melt extent for this year. Here's where the highest was, at 60%. Back here at the end of July, or around the middle of the, when was that? Didn't mean to do that. That was, I think that was around the 20th or something of July. And here it's come back down kind of to the normal range, but it did go back up at the end of August, and now it's back down to normal, kind of what they consider normal range. Now, what you've all been waiting for, NASA Worldview. And we will look at some sea ice here. Here's the latest data from today. We're seeing the little black dot. It's going to be getting bigger and bigger as the sun goes down and the satellite does not pick up where it's not shining. We haven't gotten all the data in yet from today, but here it is, what we have right now from today. You can see it's quite a bit of cloud cover. You see these ripples. Not going to argue with people, but that is beaming. That is evidence of beaming, and you can see it all over the place. And when you see the crosshatch beaming, that's like major beaming, and it's right here. It's being The whole planet is being beamed from different sources. And we can see the evidence of it in the clouds. If you don't have clouds, you can't see it. And there's very little natural cloud cover anymore. It's all being manipulated. They're doing it by push of a button. You can see it right there. So if you want to know why we're not going to get refreeze, you know, microwaves heat water that boils water, and we are being cooked, folks. We're being cooked. That's all there is to it. Here's a little bit of ice there, but you can see it's how broken up it is right there on the edge. But they're calling that extent. Even this lacy, I mean, they could drive ships through there without an icebreaker, because that is just not well formed at all. They're calling all of that extent. So that is not good sea ice. It's not healthy at all. So we're in big, big trouble. Here, there's the broken up sea ice next to the North Pole. Here it is. You can see it here. You can see all these lines. It's broken up. Here's another area. We're looking through probably a little bit of cloud cover here, but that's water down there. You can see it broken up. If we go back a day, let's see, I think it was a couple of days ago, you could really see this. Oh, yesterday. Here it was yesterday. This is the North Pole. Look at this. And so where we saw the hole on the Navy GIF, it was right over here. We've got some cloud cover. We're not really being able to see that hole very well. But you can see it's not looking good. And that there is at 87. If we go back to the 13th, let's see. Here we're seeing more. So you have to go day by day and see what you can see. And then kind of remember it and put it together. So there's that. Well, my longitude and latitude got turned off. Let's see. There we go. And ice surface temperature. This is another helpful layer. This shows where there's no clouds. The only way they can measure this is with no cloud cover. So what you can do, you can turn that layer on, and then you can move your pointer over and see what the temperature is. It shows up over here on this graph, and this is in Kelvin, and 272 degrees Kelvin is 0 degrees Celsius, and that's that's where fresh water freezes, but salt water freezes at a lower temperature. So when you see 273 Kelvin, that is above freezing for fresh water. So for salt water, it's going to be even lower that it has to. See over here, this is 276. Over by Novaya Zemlya, that's 278, and so on. And here we have cloud-free over the North Pole even. That's 262. So it's not far from the freezing point for salt water. And with the intrusion of the Atlantic Ocean further and further, the mixing, we can look, sea surface salinity, this is on the Navy website. SSS is sea surface salinity. This shows the mixing of the salt water with the fresh water. Because the Arctic used to be primarily fresh water, and when you look down here, like in the purples, that's more fresh water, 27, but then when you get on up into the yellows and the reds, that's more salt water. So more into the greens and yellows and the reds. And you can see it mixing here, right here. And it's mixing under the sea ice. You can see the mixing. Or with the sea ice. And if we look at this here's the 30-day gift for the mixing. It's slow, but you can see it. So anyway, I leave links to all of these websites that I use for research. I leave them below under my videos. So you're welcome to do your own research for this and see what's going on. Now, I'd like to finish up by taking a peek at the Antarctic. And I've got some videos that I've done on the Antarctic. Now this is, let's refresh this. They're coming into their spring and summer as the Earth is tilting. The northern part of the Earth is tilting away from the sun, and the southern part of the Earth is tilting towards the sun. So they're coming into their summer, or spring and summer. Here's the sea ice. We can see the edge of it here. And cloud layer, a little bit there. And this is an excellent view of, this is the A68 iceberg that broke off from the Larsen Sea ice shelf a couple of years ago in the wintertime, their wintertime. Here it is. Look how it's migrated. It broke off down here. You see where this line is? That's where it broke off. And it has migrated, and we've been watching it move. We've been watching it on its journey. And now that the sun is up, and this is an excellent view with no cloud cover today, and this is A68, and this is the sea ice that's holding it in, and it could go out to sea before long. If this sea ice melts enough and this gets momentum with the ocean currents, it's going to go out to sea. So there's the sea ice, and we can see it's cracked all the way around the edge here. And this is the beginning, just the beginning of their spring. Another area we've been watching is this Brunt ice shelf right here. It looks like a half moon, and it's got cracks. Remember, this is the Halloween crack, and this is another crack. This is the cracking of this ice shelf. I reported on this earlier this year, where the research station, they had to airlift all the people off, and they left all their equipment because it was cracking so fast that they thought they were going to go down. So there's that crack. There's the sea ice right around the edge there. So that's going to be melting pretty quick. We're also seeing methane come up around these edges. If you look at cams, you can see the methane. Oh, and this is the Weddell Sea. This is the Weddell ice shelf. We can see evidence of more of those wavy clouds. See, those wavy clouds. And then down here is the Pine Island Glacier, right here, this little area. And if we go back, yesterday we have a really good view. Remember when this glacier was calving and we were following this, and this is where the glacier edge used to be a couple of years ago, and then it's been calving and breaking off, and then it broke off again last year. Then this is where it refroze a little bit, but this is the edge. And so as this keeps breaking off, this is adding to the sea level rise. And this area is melting really fast, and they found active volcanoes underneath this area. And there are lots of active volcanoes down here underneath the ice. There are about 100 volcanoes that they found. They found a whole landscape underneath of caverns and all kinds of stuff. And I love studying the Antarctic. It's so interesting. And this black area, this is where we're regaining viewing. This is where we're not being able to see, but the sun is coming up, but as it comes up every day, this black area is going to become less and less. Here it was like the 13th, and so on. You can see it's a little bit bigger as we go back, but we've been able to start seeing stuff for about a month now down here. Oh, and here's the Ross ice shelf, and this area that's in the red on Climate Reanalyzer. And we can see it's open sea ice, open water, right up at the edge of this sea ice in a lot of areas. So I think that's a little disturbing too, considering they're coming out of winter. And you can see areas already where the snow's melted. These mountains, we can see there's no snow where it's brown. So there's that. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up for today. I hope you enjoyed my report, and I look forward to getting back to full-time reporting, and I'm going to be presenting articles again and doing some world news again and talking about variety of things. I've really had to narrow my focus, though, while I was caring for my friend. And even before he moved in with me, or, stayed with me for this time period, I was providing a lot of help for him. I was cooking for him and taking him to doctor's appointments and stuff, and taking him on errands, and I was spending 2-3 days a week doing that, and then the cooking, and a lot of phone calls, and he'd be calling me in the middle of the night, and so I didn't say anything on the shows, because it wasn't anybody's business. But it's been a lot of work and a lot of care, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because when you love someone, that's just what you do. So until next time, I recommend everyone get your spiritual house in order if you've not already done so, because no one knows the day or the hour, and time is very short. And I love you guys, and I'll be talking to you real soon. God bless you. Go in peace, and goodbye.